Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Gold Pride Archetype. Now, I'm a little bit behind with this. I meant to make a video a bit earlier with it, but a few things came up and it put me a little bit behind the 8 ball. But this archetype was really intriguing to me when it was first announced, and Photon Hypernova came out a couple weeks ago, so I know people have had a chance to play around with this a little bit, and it even had a little bit of representation in some of the earlier rounds at the most recent YCS. But as it stands, I think the general consensus is that the archetype is cool in concept, but is not necessarily fully functional. So what I want to do today is go over the cards themselves, and this is going to be a two-part video because I've been playtesting with a build of the deck, somewhat inspired by MBT's Punk engine with a few differences. I've been playtesting some games online and putting together a video talking about that and actually showcasing it. But I thought we'd talk about the cards first and just kind of go over them. So let's jump into the video. We've had many archetypes over the years that have been TCG exclusive that have been really cool on paper but have not been expanded upon. A few that come to mind are things like Dream Mirror, as well as the War Rocks, which I guess were cool in concept but never got any really good cards. There have also been some like Plunder Patrol and Cosmo that have been TCG exclusive and have been really good, and lest we forget Burning Abyss, which was another really strong archetype that dominated the meta for a very long time. So naturally, when a new TCG archetype comes out, people are never really sure whether or not to like buy in, or if they're just going to give it like one or two sets of support and then forget about it again, and whether or not it's just the new flavor of the month for Konami. But I have reason to believe Gold Pride may not be that. So we'll go ahead and get into it. But before we talk any further, I just want to ask you guys, if you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button, like the video if you did enjoy it, and click the bell icon if you want to stay notified. And let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of Gold Pride and whether or not you think the deck actually has some potential, and obviously taking into consideration the fact that we do need to see what the other support looks like. All right, so first thing I want to talk about, of course, is that we've actually got some accessories coming out for Gold Pride, and I think this is interesting because it's the first time we've ever gotten like accessories made by Konami in the TCG for a TCG exclusive archetype, which makes me think they do have a lot of hope for it and are going to give it some viable support so that it's actually an archetype people will gravitate towards. And at least if they don't, we have some really cool accessories to look at. So this playmat is really cool. I think it looks awesome in terms of its design. I almost wish they would make some that didn't have the zones on them, so you just had like the flat kind of playmat like they did with the Chibi variants of the DM era characters a while back. But this mat with Captain Carry on it looks really nice. We've got these card sleeves, which look like they would be almost textured in a way, but I think they're just going to be your standard glossy back, you know, regular MSRP card sleeves, but they look awesome. The unfortunate thing is they probably won't be very good for playability purposes in like your main deck, but if you want to like sleeve your extra deck with these, I think they look really cool from a sleeve design perspective. And then we've got the deck box here, which is just really neat. A lot going on here. And it's got all the different symbols for all the different Gold Pride. I think it's all of the ones we've seen so far. I guess there could be others, but I'm fairly certain that it's just the symbols for the ones we've seen so far. And then we've got the binder, which looks very similar to the deck box, but again, just a really cool aesthetic, kind of abstract-ish design, and it looks really neat. So I'm excited about these accessories. These come out a little bit later this year, I believe in May. And I know some people are definitely intrigued by them and looking forward to being able to get them. So at the very least, you do have some cool accessories to look forward to. But let's take a look at the cards and just go over the effects. I know a lot of people might be familiar with these already, but setting up a two-part video where I'm going to go ahead and showcase the deck and what I'm working with, I figured it did make sense to at least go over the basics of the cards first. All right, so first up, we've got Gold Pride Leon, which is not only a secret rare in the set, but was also the sneak promo. Again, sneak promos don't work the way they used to, where you just everyone would get one. They're kind of like random, so some of them end up actually carrying a decent bit of value now just because of how scarce they are. But Leon is a really cool card. It's a level 3 wind secret rare warrior tuner with effect, and it says if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one non-warrior Gold Pride monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position. Also, you can not special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except Gold Pride monsters. During your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only Gold Pride monsters you control. You can only use each effect of Gold Pride Leon once per turn. So it's an extender, it is also a reviver, and it has the quick synchro effect, which does allow you to sort of play around its restriction of locking you into Gold Prides, because if you just like pass and then during your opponent's main phase quick synchro, you can summon pretty much whatever you want as long as your levels line up. Next up is Gold Pride Nitro Head. This is a level 8 Fire Pyro effect monster, and it says if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can special summon this card from your hand. During your opponent's standby phase, you can special summon a Nitro token, attack 0, defense 0, level 8 Pyro Fire to your opponent's field, but it cannot be used as link material. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can target one Nitro token on the field, destroy that token, and if you do, destroy all cards in its adjacent monster zones and spell and trap zones. You can only use each effect of Gold Pride Nitro Head once per turn. This is a really neat card for a few reasons. For one, it does allow you to sort of put something on the opponent's field to block right off the bat, which is a neat concept. We haven't seen a lot of that, like the column destruction, placing things there. And while this card doesn't really have any direct synergy with the rest of the lineup from its actual effect, it is still an extender that you can summon that is a level 8, so it gives you access to level 11 synchros, it gives you access to your links easier, and in general is just a decently easy card to drop to put some extra damage while kind of pressuring the opponent, because depending on where the token goes, your opponent has to kind of play around that, and there are certainly ways to make it work, which I'll showcase a little bit better in the actual gameplay videos. Next up is Gold Pride Captain Carry, of course the only one that got a Starlight in the set, and you can kind of see the appeal behind it from an art perspective. It gravitates towards the type of things fans like to go after in this game for a while. This is an ultra rare in the set as well as the Starlight. It is a level 3 Water Fiend, and it's of course that first effect. If your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Gold Pride trap from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Gold Pride monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck, banish up to 3 Gold Pride cards from your graveyard, and if you do, that monster gains 500 attack for each card banished this way. Cool part about this, of course, is the searching the trap is solid. It does give you a bit of resource recovery in terms of replacing the card out of your hand. Again, it's an extender in the same way that all of the other Gold Prides are. They can all kind of special summon themselves if your life points are lower. And that attack boost effect is permanent, so it does help to push for damage in certain situations. It's not groundbreaking, and I would actually argue this is probably one of the weaker cards as a whole, unless we get some better Gold Pride traps going forward, but it's still an extender, it's still a decently playable card, and it still has some good level synergy with your other tuner, so you have Leon, and this can bring you into the level 6 Synchro. It's not a bad card overall, it's just kind of underwhelming with the current slate of support that we have. Now, the spell card, Gold Pride, The Crowd Goes Wild, is a secret rare in the set as a normal spell, and it says reveal one Gold Pride monster in your hand. Add one Gold Pride monster with a different name from that revealed card from your deck to your hand, then you can apply the following effect. Special summon one Gold Pride monster from your hand, but lose life points equal to its original attack. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. That drawback is not really a drawback, it actually is what helps you to really get your combos going, because you want your life points to be lower than your opponent's. And there is direct synergy with this deck and the Punk archetype, which is kind of where my foundation was built on, where MBT's foundation was built on with his video. But generally speaking, that anything you can do to get your life points lower is going to set you up to better be able to play through a lot of things that the opponent brings out for you. This is still a searcher and an extender, and it does a lot for you, especially if you play this in conjunction with carry. You get the extra card in hand. There's just a lot of different ways to make this work, and it's just a really solid extender for the deck. You can definitely you don't have to special summon the monster that you add, which is a nice little add thing for you, and you have just the added bonus of being able to get whatever you need and get extra stuff on the board. So this is a really solid card, a good piece of support, and hopefully more of their support will be kind of in line with this, because it's definitely a solid starter for your combo. Now, the only trap we have so far is Gold Pride Start Your Engines, and it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's just kind of like with the limited pool of cards to play at this moment, you kind of have to include it. Gold Pride Start Your Engine's a normal trap, and it says if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, target one of those monsters, reveal 3 Gold Pride monsters from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon, shuffle the rest into the deck, and then destroy the targeted monster. So this is kind of like one of those like the spellbook library that allows you to like pick 3, your opponent searches one at random. This can search 3 copies of the same card, so you can basically guarantee that you get out, Leon or Nitro Head or whatever. It's just that it's kind of inherently slow. It's essentially like a bottomless trap hole type card that doesn't vanish, but also gives you a little bit more search potential. It's just that it doesn't do enough on most circumstances to kind of like further things along, but it's still searchable. It's still decent enough right now. I very much think this would be a card that would be like one of the first things to cut if they released any better traps, but you still want to have a viable trap target, and getting those searches is decent because you can, again, quick synchro during the opponent's turn, so there are some ways to make this work. I just think the card as a whole is relatively uninspiring, but it doesn't have a hard once per turn restriction, so that is something that works to its benefit. Now, for the Link extra deck stuff, we have Gold Pride Nitro Blaster, which is a Link 2 that needs 2 Gold Pride monsters with different levels. It is a Pyro Dark monster, and it says you can target 1 monster your opponent controls. Destroy it. Then, if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can destroy all cards in its adjacent monster zones and spell and trap zones. You can only use each effective Gold Pride Nitro Blaster once per turn. Once per turn during the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon 1 Gold Pride Nitro Head from your deck or graveyard. I like the thematic of this because it's sort of like using like an ultimate move in like Mario Kart or something like that, where you get like an item, you get a special power up, and then it goes away at the end of the turn and you bring back your racer. But this card as a whole is decent spot removal, as well as popping additional stuff around it. And if the opponent's playing against this, they're probably going to be a lot more cautious about where they're placing their spells, traps, and monsters and stuff, because you can easily disrupt a small subsection of the field just by popping. But this is a pretty decent card that's not hard to summon, and of course there are some circumstances in which bringing back Nitro Head after using this card's effect is not terrible, because you can then, you know, put another token out, pop more stuff, and sort of keep your Link to bring out next turn and use. There's just some decent stuff here in terms of the interaction that I think is a really cool foundation for the deck as a whole, assuming that the next set of cards that we get are building upon what we already have and not falling into that trap of just releasing like kind of useless support like B-Troopers did. And lastly, Gold Pride Star Leone is a level 6 Synchro Thunder monster, and I actually think this is probably the best card that the deck has so far. It's 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. During the main phase quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. This card gains attack equal to that target's original attack. Then, if your life points are lower than your opponent's, you can destroy that monster. You can only use this effect once per turn, and then once per turn during the end phase. If this effect was activated this turn, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon 1 Gold Pride Leone from your deck or graveyard. So in addition to being able to really push for damage with this card because you buff stuff up, you can also pop stuff. At the very least, though, even if your life points aren't lower, you can still buff this up to get over some things, or just to deal extra damage in general. And that effect does give a permanent attack boost, even though it will, you know, in most cases shuffle itself off the field. So there is a lot to like about this card and the removal options that the deck has. It's just that there's such a limited card pool right now that we really have to wait and see how they pull it all together. As a whole, I think the Gold Pride archetype has a really solid foundation for future support to maybe be viable if they were to give us more competitive support. I know people are excited about this. It seems like Konami's excited about it with how big they're marketing it, so we can only hope that the next wave of support, which we know we're getting in the next set, will continue the trend and give us some, not inherently broken cards, but enough to like really push these up the ladder a little bit, because it's still, as a whole, is a very kind of like weak foundation that has potential. So what I've done is watched multiple videos across the internet from YouTubers much bigger than myself who have talked about this deck, who have played games with this deck, looked at different deck profiles, put my own variant of it together, and I've been playing some games online on Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega, both in ranked and in non-ranked, just to get some footage to like see how the deck functions, see how it plays against different matchups, and see what I like and what I don't like. And I will say it definitely has some really, really good synergy, like we mentioned earlier, with the Punk package. Cards like Psychic and Punisher directly benefit from a deck like this, especially because of how easy it is to make an 11 with Leone and the Nitro Head, which means you have a pretty much a monster that's unaffected by all effects, and it's not hard to get there just by lowering the life points. But there are other cards as well that you benefit in conjunction with the archetype. So if you guys like this thing, please hit the like button. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of these cards so far, and then check back for part 2, where I'm going to post videos of some of the gameplay that I've done, and then talk about the decisions going into the deck and showcase my own profile. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.